Okay, then next I will touch on the capital appreciation potential between the BTO standard, plus and prime. Okay, so actually in my opinion, all these three types, right, all BTO will sure make money. Man. It's just a matter of how much.
Hello and welcome to another episode of our Avenue 88 podcast. I'm Luis. Joining me today are...
I'm Jackie.
Brent.
I'm Chantel.
So we are so excited to discuss today's topics. It's one of the most common questions many HDB buyers will be keen to find out. So if you are someone looking to understand the differences of a BTO between the standard plus or prime, you simply want to make smarter choices of today's new HDB model. So you are in the right place. So let's jump into today's discussion. So HDB introduced the standard plus and prime BTOs flat classification in October 2024. So this new framework replaced the older classifications of the BTO projects as either a mature or the non-mature estates. Under this new framework, it is categorized based on their locality, attributes such as proximity to the city center, transport connectivity, and the availabilities of amenities.
Yes, so this new HDB classification system introduces a series of calibrated measures designed to reshape the public housing landscape. So the key objective is to curb the excessive windfall gains. Yeah. So we have heard story like Pinnacle and Duxton that make over 1 million profit and things like that.
Yes.
So the whole idea is to curb this kind of windfall gain, reinforcing the notion of HDB flat as home rather than investment assets. And also ensuring the long-term housing affordability. So, I mean, our children or our grandchildren can still afford the HDBs. Yeah. So, it also may influence the resale market dynamics and also leading to a surge in certain segments. So, it's also subtly provide more equitable access for the single buyers as well.
It's true. Yeah, so today we want to touch on the differences between the standard plus and prime BTO projects since it introduced. So, for standard flats, right, like the regular BTOs flat that most of us are already familiar with. They come with the standard subsidies and standard restrictions that are applied to all the BTOs flats. So that includes a 5 years MOP, which is we call the minimum occupation period, with rental of the whole unit only allowed after the MOP, all right, which we understand even right now, we can do that. For resale buyers of a standard flats, right, are not subjected to any income ceiling and can purchase these HDB flats as long as they meet the HDB ownership or eligibility criteria.
Right.
Yeah. So typically for every BTO exercise, HDB will actually offer more standard BTO flats right now. So for example, in this upcoming July launch, there are a total of 5,430 units will be offered. And out of that, 2,880 units comprises between 2 bedrooms all the way to a 5-bedroom. In Bukit Panjang, Simei, Sembawang, and Woodlands are all under the standard BTOs. So that is more than half of the offered units in July alone. Yeah. So the next category is plus flat. So this is a new category of flats that are in a better location within each region across Singapore. So for plus flat, right, we'll have a tighter conditions as compared to a standard flats. So this include a 10 years MOP.
Oh, 10 years. So include the building time about 3 to 5 years. So it's almost 13 to 15 years.
Yes. So that's a bit longer planning. So for this one, after the MOP, right, you can't really rent the whole apartment as well. So that means
that they can only rent out rooms even after MOP.
You're right. So you can only rent out rooms if, let's say, you want to earn a additional income. So you can't rent a whole unit. So for current framework, all Singaporeans can actually rent out the whole unit, whether regardless of HDB, right? But for new ones, for this plus and prime, they are not allowed to rent the whole unit, even they are Singaporean. Yeah. So resale buyers of plus flat must meet the prevailing BTO income ceiling as well. So this is currently at 14,000. Okay, and the interesting part is that for single who are buying these plus flats,
the
on the
resale,
plus flat, yes, on the resale market, all right, the income ceiling is also set at 14,000.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so meaning to say like the future buyer of this plus flat, meaning to say the resale plus flat after the 10 years MOP,
After the 10 years.
that buyer will be still restricted to this income ceiling of
Yes.
14,000. Wow.
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
All right, so this means that for any buyers who are looking to buy, whether you are a single or a family, your income can't exceed 14,000 as well. But
Yes.
this is at current amount, but we may change, we don't know.
Okay, likely will change over time.
After next few years, right?
No,
Yeah.
not next few years. It's the next maybe 15 years later. 5 years construction plus 10 years MOP.
Yes, that could be, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So on top of that, okay, there will be a subsidy recovery upon selling this flat. Okay. So this is applicable only for the first owner.
Okay, also just to take note that there will be resale subsidy clawback for the Plus and the Prime. So for the Plus, it's actually about 6 to 8%. Then for the Prime, will be 9%, and it varies for different estate.
Yeah. So actually, this is something that during the purchase, HDB will tell you what is the resale subsidy clawback. But at the same time, I feel this resale subsidy clawback is something like the seller stamp duty. That is it's based on the sale price.
Yes.
Meaning to say, if you sell this place, your house like in the future at 1 million,
Yes.
let's say it's at 6% resale clawback, then it's the 60K
Yeah.
of
That's
clawback.
right.
So if your,
pay to
H-
HDB.
if your HDB reach 2 mil, then they will call back
120.
Yeah.
Wow.
So will the future seller will factor in this clawback amount in their selling price?
likely.
Okay, so likewise for the upcoming July BTOs for this Plus, right, we may see 1 to 2 sites launched under Plus. So such as Toa Payoh. So this Toa Payoh is not confirmed. It's either a Plus or a Prime, all right, and Clementi. So these locations were generally more superior compared to the rest, as compared to the standard within the same estate. And because these are in a better location, so they logically cost more. However, HDB intend to keep them more affordable, so enable more wider range of Singaporeans to purchase them. All right. So lastly, we want to touch on the HDB prime flats. So commonly known as the prime location public housing, in short PLH, flat that was introduced in 2022. Prime flats are going to cost more compared to Plus and Standard, just like the iPhone. All right. Yeah, due to the superiority of the locations, for the government to price them at a more affordable cost, subsidized of such flat, right, will be the highest. Hence, it's the same. It will be a 10 years MOP.
Right.
All right. And they also can't rent out after 10 years of MOP. All right. The homeowner will still have to keep the house for own stay. Resale buyers of this prime flat, right, must also meet the prevailing BTO income ceiling. So this is currently at 14,000. Okay. But for single, buying the prime flat, right, take note, it's only the income ceiling is only set at 7,000.
Wow.
For some groups of single forever cannot buy PLH.
Yes.
Well, we can see
the richer
now,
singles.
yeah, based on now, maybe they are just setting at this price because the price is still sustainable. But in the future, when the income increase, right, I guess their income ceiling will also follows.
Yeah.
All right, and also the higher subsidies recovery upon selling, right? This is the highest. The subsidy clawback right now will be at 9%.
Yeah. So if you are selling your PLH at 2 million, that will be 180,000 callback.
Voila, that's like GST.
Well,
Oh yeah, it's like GST.
it all goes to our Singapore building, right? You know, yeah. So
It all goes to HDB.
Yeah, all goes to
Maybe it become our CDC voucher. Yay!
all right.
Maybe.
So for the prime locations, they are most desirable. So that's why in this current BTO launch, right, there will be 2 sites that will be offered. Is in Bukit Merah and likely the Toa Payoh site, which I feel the Toa Payoh site will likely be more of the prime than the plus.
Okay.
All right, let's
Makes
see.
sense.
Yeah. So the next one that we need to discuss about is the affordability comparison and the price difference.
Yes, exactly. So, of course, BTOs is a very highly sought after class of HDBs in Singapore, but there are criteria that people need to go through, and also with that, there's also grants that can help people to afford better. So I will touch more on this point. So first thing is to qualify for BTOs, right? You have to meet the income ceiling requirement, and it's very easy to remember this income ceiling requirement because it's in multiples of 7,000. So for example, right, if you are single, your income ceiling cannot exceed 7,000 per month to qualify for BTO. If it's a family, you need, let's say you are a couple, then your general income ceiling for the household cannot exceed 14,000.
Yeah,
and then
it's
there
the
is
household income, right?
Yes, exactly, the household income. And then there is also some BTOs, right, that is for 3-generation kind of family whereby the grandparents, parents, and the young ones have to be together, right? So for this type of 3-gen family, right, your household income cannot exceed 21,000. So very easy, multiples of 7,000. So if you qualify for this, then yay. Then you
Good
get
for
to,
you.
yes, good for you. Yeah. So now I move on to the grants for BTO. Yeah. So 2 types of grants are available for the BTOs, and this is namely the enhanced CPF housing grant and also the step up CPF housing grant. So the step up CPF housing grant is more for those who are actually upgrading from subsidized 2-room flat or public rental flats. Yeah. So for the majority of the people out there who are first timers, right, then probably the enhanced CPF grant will be more relevant. Yeah, also one thing to note, proximity grant is not relevant for BTO. So
Yes,
if
that's
you
right.
are going closer to, you are gonna live closer to your parents, right, you probably get some form of priority, but you do not get additional grant for it. So that's one thing to note lah. Yeah. So moving more to in terms of the kind of grants. So for families, you can get up to 120,000 in terms of the total grant amount. Yeah. So this actually depends on the household income because it works in a tiered system. So depending on how much is the household income, right, then you will be giving accordingly lah. So of course the highest amount for families will be 120,000. And in order to qualify for this housing grant, right, your income, monthly household income need to be below 9,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So this is for families. Yeah. Then for singles. Yes.
So for let's say household
Yeah.
income, that means if the couple earn like 10,000, then they will not be eligible for this EHG.
Yes,
Correct?
cannot.
Ah.
And to add on maybe because for EHG it does applies to also a resale flat.
Yeah.
So it is actually for both a new flat and a
Resale flat as well.
as
Yeah,
well.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So even if you are getting like say sales of balance, right, this EHG can also be applicable. So yay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually for the resale people very good. They can get the first timer grant.
Yes.
Then they can also
Yes.
it's like Shopee stack voucher like that. You can stack
You
your
can
grant.
You can stack your
Yeah, you
grant.
can stack your grant
Yeah.
for
No,
that's
for
for the
resale,
resale
actually there are
people.
3 grants.
Oh,
but-
still got proximity
Proximity
grant.
more
Yes.
Yeah, this
proximity
is
grant.
like stacking of the grant. Yeah, so
Yeah.
But I think for BTO is good also because in the first place the price is already lowered
yes,
or subsidized.
exactly.
Subsidized.
Yeah,
Exactly.
subsidized flat, and then plus
Exactly.
now you can enjoy the EHG as well.
Yes, yeah, actually, because a lot of time we see the price gap between BTO and resale, right? You're looking at maybe about 300,000 kind of a gap.
Yeah.
So let's say, like for example, let's say your combined income 10K, and then you still get BTO, right? It's still
still
very
not
good.
bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
still
not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so coming back to the grants for singles. So so this grant for singles, right, is also applicable for say couples, right, whereby when you apply for BTO, one of you is like a first timer and the other is a second timer. lah. So basically you kind of get like half grant. So like for the families, right, it is like 120,000. Then for the singles, right, it's actually up to 60,000. So the maximum grant level is 60,000. And to qualify for this, your average household income, monthly household income should not exceed 4,500. So kind of like for the families is like maximum 9,000, right? So this one is maximum 4,500. Yeah. So to put this into an example, right? For example, like a couple who earn 60,000 in their 12-month income assessment period, right? They will be eligible for the half grant because it looks at half of their monthly income. So for example, if this couple makes like 60,000 a year, so that means that every month they make 5,000, right? HDB looks at half of this income, which is 2,500. So with that, they can still qualify for the enhanced housing grant. So
But only half of it lah.
Yeah, only half of it. That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yeah. So we do have a table that we will show, like right in front. Yeah, like so that you can kind of see how is the levels like this, how the tier system work. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Okay, then next I will touch on the capital appreciation potential between the BTO standard, plus and prime. Okay, so actually in my opinion, all these three types, right, all BTO will sure make money. Man. It's just a matter of how much. But like we mentioned earlier on, like the plus and PLH may not have the huge lottery effect anymore.
Correct.
The huge windfall. Okay, why I say that? First, we must look at the profit earned at Pinnacle and Duxton first.
Yeah.
Okay, so actually in the news, this one was addressed, published
Yes,
also. Owner actually make like 1 million over.
Yeah.
Profit, it's not just on the sale price.
I believe that one is en block owner.
Yeah, maybe day one owner,
Day
then
one owner.
day
Yes,
one
definitely
owner.
day one owner.
Day one owner, right?
Yes,
Day
yes.
one owner, then he sold, then he made like 1 million profit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but then we won't really see this kind of cases anymore for the plus and prime, mainly because of the income ceiling cap. Because now people who bought that, who are buying the Pinnacle and Duxton, they can earn a very high income. They can be like some investment banker earning 20 to 30,000 per month, and then they go and buy Pinnacle and Duxton because it's near to their workplace or maybe near CBD.
Yeah.
But then now, can the same person go and buy plus and prime model? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Because first off, you need to fulfill the income ceiling cap.
Yep.
And only plus can give you up to 14K.
Yeah.
For prime, it's only 7,000. People who earn a 7,000 income and go and buy the prime with a 1 million profit, I don't think so. They won't really pay such a high price.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the reason Pinnacle at Duxton can continue to go higher because of the fact that there's no restriction to the income ceiling. So hence, the government introduced this new policy.
Correct. Yeah, then second thing I want to touch on actually is on the resale clawback as well.
Yep.
Because actually, like we mentioned earlier on, this resale clawback is based on the future sale price. That means next time if you want to sell at 1 million, if it's at 9%, it's at 90K. 1.5 mil, then that is at 135,000. Yeah. So actually, every time when you want to sell, you will have hit by a 9% tax, so-called tax
Yeah.
to it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it's based on the sale price. So that is quite crazy, in my opinion.
True.
Yeah. So I feel like if you really want to buy into PLH or plus, you will still make money, but you cannot come in with a mindset saying that I want to make like 1 million profit like the Pinnacle and Duxton.
Yeah.
It will not happen anymore.
It's true.
You will still make money, but then not such a high price.
Yeah.
So I feel like on the other hand, if you look at the standard BTO type, right, they will still make money. And then at the same time, actually, they don't have such restriction. They
Correct.
won't have the resale subsidy clawback.
Correct.
Then they don't have the income ceiling cap as well. So in a way, I feel this actually will maybe it's like a free flow already. Yeah. So I feel actually like even the normal BTO these days, you have a very good potential to make good income as well. But I mean, like what HDB always says, okay, HDB is not meant to be like an investment asset.
Not to speculate.
Yes.
not for
Cannot
speculation.
speculate.
Meant for staying.
Meant for staying, exactly. So in a way, actually, like if you want to stay into PLH or the plus area, I think it's because you like the location, you want to have the convenience, and you don't mind with such restriction. Yeah.
All right. So next we will actually discuss maybe to for Brent to tell us, like a case study of how standard BTO flats compared to a plus flat between what are the opportunity costs, due to their future loan tenure and all this.
Okay, so for this comparison, we are more focused on the opportunity cost due to loan tenure and also the resale timeline. So to be fair, we actually chose two buyers, one for the standard BTO in Tengah and the other one for the plus in Queenstown. And both of them will start at age 30 as point of application. So both also apply a 4-room flat. So for the Tengah BTO and the Queenstown BTO actually both launched this year. So for the Tengah, the construction duration is about 4 years, so they'll be ready in 2029. Then for the Queenstown, it'll be ready in 2030. So by the time the buyers can collect the keys, they are age 34 and 35. And for the Tengah, only 5 years MOP. So by the time they can sell, they will be 39 years old. However, for the Queenstown buyer, by the time they can sell, they are already at age 45.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say down the road, in year 2034, after the Tengah buyer hit the MOP, they actually sold their flat maybe for estimated for of 850. Then for the Queenstown buyer, they can only sell in 2040, but maybe they can sell a very high price at 1.4 million. That's into the future, but they definitely will have this clawback in 2040.
Yeah.
So I actually just chart this out. There'll be a sales proceed. So as what I mentioned earlier, the Tengah buyer can actually sell the flat 5 years after collecting the key. So by the time he is actually age 39. So at this age, he can still actually take a 26 years loan and stretch it further to 30 years if he want to upgrade to a private property.
I see. So if based on the chart that you have shown, so obviously we can see that typically for such a long waiting time, I guess the family themselves, they may have to consider their lifestyle and also their, whether the children's growing up, the school that they need to go through. So these are things that they will have to take into consideration when they choose either the Plus or the Standard or the Prime.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so back to the resale market timeline, as what I have mentioned. So let's say if they really sell the price for the Tengah BTO, they sold it at 850 in 2034. They actually have a sales proceed of around 490k. So this 490k, right, they can actually buy a private property of around 1.7 to 1.8 million without touching any of their savings. However, in contrast, for the Queenstown buyer, they are subjected to the 10 years MOP. So by the time they can actually upgrade, will be at age 45.
Okay.
And so since we are also on the topic of loan tenure and opportunity cost, so what does time buy you? So for the Tengah buyer, right, by the age of 45, he will have already spent about 6 years in private housing. So he actually gained the capital gain from his BTO. So actually let's say he really went to proceed to buy the private property in 2034. Then he can potentially even upgrade 3 to 4 years down to 2 private properties. Then this will become their second private property upgrade cycle. And if the first property they buy make a substantial gain, they can also choose to sell it off and buy another 2 units, one for their own stay and one for their passive income. So they will actually benefit also from the longer home tenure. However, for the Queenstown buyer, he can only enter the private market at age 45. So by the time he's age 45, he can only take about 20 years loan, although he can stretch it maybe for another 4 years. So, but he will face tighter affordability due to shorter loan window. Then his loan amount also will drop. So not just the loan tenure.
I see. So I think there's no right or wrong answer for this, because end of the day, I guess I also meet a lot of the HDB owners who prefer to stay in one HDB, or maybe they will choose to move on to another HDB, a smaller one, after when they reach a retirement age.
Yes.
So they are very comfortable with their, like their place in the prime area, more accessible to all the amenities as well. Yeah. So I guess there will be always the other side of the buyers where they will also chase after the asset progression, going through the sell and buy. And also this is what some of the HDB upgradings we are talking about, like in the earlier series that we are discussing also. So you can actually go to our earlier podcast to look at it. All right. So touching on all this, right, we want to understand, so should we still buy a BTO Standard or Plus or Prime? Either one. So for Brand, will you still go for a Standard BTO?
I will still prefer a Standard BTO, as I prefer more flexibility lah. As the Plus might need about 14-15 years, which is a long time lah. However, if the Plus or the Prime has a nice sea view in East Coast, I don't really mind.
Oh, okay.
So you're referring to the Bayshore one?
Bayshore, I think should be plus.
Plus, confirm plus.
Yeah. But also have to be selected units. You are, let's see you're at which part of Bayshore.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Yes.
Sea view. Yeah.
Sometimes it's also based on your balloting queue number.
Yeah,
It's not like
exactly.
you want to go for the
Yeah,
sea
yeah.
view, you can get.
All the stars have to align.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
bid number
Agree,
must be good.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for brand Chantel, you go for which one?
Yeah. I think for me, like, because I think it depends on life stage, right? So I think maybe I'm still at this stage where I would probably want to look at more steps of progression lah. So probably standard would work better, but I really love the Bayshore BTOs. Like, it's so nice. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but I think practically, I think really depends on life stage. So, like say, right, I say if right now I'm in my retirement stage, right, and then I can qualify for it, then I would go for the prime one because Tanjong Rhu at that price is really
Yes.
attractive, and
Yes.
it is a place that you can really live for a long time also. So I think if I'm just at the last leg, right, of enjoying passive income, then yeah, why not, right? Yeah. So so I think that's my take on it. Yeah.
How about Jackie?
Okay, so let me touch on the standard first.
Yeah.
So like standard BTO, like what Chantal you all mentioned, right? Like those in the, let's say, Bayshore area, usually they will cost like a lot cheaper than the resale ones in the Bedok,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bedok area. Easily like let's say like for example like a 4-room flat, right? You will have a price gap between the new standard or like the plus BTO,
Yes.
about 300,000 to 400,000 different for a 4-room flat. Yeah. So in a way, standard actually don't feel inferior. You already 赢在起跑线. Your initial start point already have this price gap of like 300,000 to 400,000 different compared to the resale units nearby.
Yeah.
So if you ask me back to the question, why choose standard plus or prime, right? So I think also like what everyone say it really depends on which stage of my life. If now
Yes.
I'm in my early 20s, no brainer, I'll just go for the prime one because I have time to waste. Okay, not say time to waste.
Time
lah.
to
I mean,
wait and
Time
accumulate.
to wait and accumulate. Yes. So, so if I'm in my early 20s, because by the time when I need to sell my prime or plus house, right,
Yeah.
then I will be in my
Mid-30s.
mid-30s.
Yes,
I still
yes.
have another 30-year loan
Yeah.
tenure to go for.
Yeah.
So I will go for that. But if now, I mean, if I'm in the middle age, like maybe 30 plus to 40, then I will go for the standard. Yeah. So that, I mean, the waiting time and all is shorter.
Yeah.
And more flexibility also.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, like also like add on to what Chantal mentioned. If I'm like a bit older, in my late 40s or 50s, also I will enjoy life already. Go for the prime and plus location. Yeah.
Agree.
So doesn't matter. Yeah. So I think it also depends on the stage of life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in summary, I guess everyone do agree that it depends on the stage of life. So if we are at the age of between around 35 to 45, this is the best time for us to accumulate our wealth by asset progression, by upgrading to a different property as well to weigh, because for all the HDB subsidies, like especially BTOs, we Singaporean only entitled 2 times, alright, so in
Yes.
our lifetime,
Yeah.
right? So obviously we have to use it wisely. The first bullet, probably use for the BTO, the first property. Then the subsequent one, if you manage to have a second chance to go for the BTO, you can actually go for your retirement already.
Yes.
Go for the plus and prime. Let's
Yes.
go.
All right. So we are coming to the end of this podcast. So thank you for sticking with us till the end. So if you enjoyed this episode or found this useful, we will really appreciate you to support us by hitting the subscribe button or give us a like and share your biggest takeaway. And in these comments, we want to hear from you and see you in our next episode. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.